Be noted, the Honourable Member for Elwick.
Thank you, Madam Acting President. I rise to note the 2025-26 budget, and following on from the member for Nelson's very thorough contribution, I just note a few things that I also was planning on speaking about that the member for Nelson has covered quite adequately, being the issue with funding to the community sector. I entirely agree with your comments there and have received feedback from organisations in the community sector who are feeling left behind by this government, as I quite clearly articulated last week in my response to the State of the State address. The member for Nelson also mentioned the issue of parity in resourcing, and certainly I know that I'm feeling that more than ever over the last few weeks, with the pressure being placed by this government on members in relation to the budget, scrutinising the budget, the stadium and all the consultation documents put out in relation to the stadium. We have a youth justice bill that they are trying to rush through this week. All of these significant pieces of legislation that have significant impacts for Tasmania that we, particularly as independents in this place, have very little resources to be able to scrutinise and analyse and do our jobs properly. So whilst, yes, it's a positive that there is some additional funding in the budget to assist with that, it doesn't go anywhere near providing parity with members in the House of Assembly, and we do exactly the same job. I note the comments from the member for Nelson in relation to the Parliamentary Budget Office, and I too was going to touch on this, that yes, fantastic, there is $100,000, I think it is, in the budget, signalling that the government is interested in the establishment of a Parliamentary Budget Office and receptive to that idea. This is not a new idea, this is something that the Public Accounts Committee has recently been investigating and done a lot of work on already, so I'm interested to see what that $100,000 will is proposed to be used on, hopefully not a consultancy, when the Public Accounts Committee is already well underway with the work to investigate what the options are and what the best practice model might be. Also note the member for Nelson's comments in relation to the National Preventative Mechanism and there being not sufficient funding to enable us as a state to properly comply with our obligations under OPCAT. And all of these oversight bodies, in fact, we've spent a lot of time over the last 12 months introducing new oversight bodies, introducing legislation for oversight bodies to ensure vulnerable people in our community are safe and supported, and it's so important that those resources are provided so that that legislation we've passed can be properly implemented. So I'll move on, but I do thank the member for Nelson for her thorough contribution, and other members as well. I've really enjoyed listening to other members' contributions, and I learn a lot from listening to other members and enjoy hearing different perspectives. Being just my second budget reply, I went to the standing orders to remind myself of the rules and procedure relating to the budget, and I thought I'd make note of this in my contribution for all of those people watching along on the live stream or reading the Hansard who may not know why this is done a bit differently to any other bill. And I reminded myself that it's under Part 28, special provisions relating to bills which the Council may not amend. 307 budget debate says, 307.1 says, after the tabling of budget papers and prior to receipt of the appropriation bill from the Assembly, the principle of such bill shall be debated by means of a take note motion. 307.2 says, following the first reading of the appropriation bill and provided the take note motion has been agreed to, the President shall put the question without amendment and without debate that the bill now be read the second time. So here we are under 307 debating the take note motion. I think I recall last year in my budget reply I presented my thoughts as a compliment sandwich, trying to insert some positivity and optimism, understanding it's not easy to balance the books and deliver for everyone, Madam Acting President. I would have liked to do the same this year. However, sadly, I couldn't find much good to put in the middle of that sandwich. Other members, particularly the member for Murchison, also the member for Huon, have clearly articulated the dire situation that the numbers present and the government's blatant disregard for the advice and possible solutions presented by respected economists and others. So I won't speak in detail on those points. But what I will put on the record is that I'm extremely disappointed in this budget. I'm despairing at the dire financial position this state is in. I'm extremely disappointed in this government's apparent lack of willingness to take advice and work together with experts and other members of Parliament on solutions to this financial crisis that we are in. I'm extremely disappointed in the prioritisation of the top end of town in this budget. The prioritisation of big business and elite and commercialised sport over our community sector, grassroots clubs and everyday battlers.
Yeah.
Madam Acting President, this budget simply does not reflect the priorities of Tasmanians. The member for Huon nailed it when he said, we're going backwards into more debt and deficit. All that will do is load our children and grandchildren with an unfair start to their working life because we as a state could not manage money. This is not a responsible proposition. I wholeheartedly agree. This is not what Tasmanians want for future generations. To a large extent, Tasmanians don't care too much about the colour of the government. The results of the 2024 state election demonstrate this. What Tasmanians care about is having elected members who will listen, elected members who will act and make decisions with the interests of everyday people and the state more broadly at heart. Regardless of political party affiliation, Tasmanians rightly expect their members of Parliament to work together to serve their best interests. Nothing angers people more than decisions made to serve political interest. The member for Rumney said this process by which we scrutinise the budget, she said the process is a little backward. We do this now, but without really having had the opportunity to properly scrutinise the budget through our estimates process. There is no doubt many of us would have a lot more to say if we were to do that first, and maybe that is why we do it this way. I agree with the member.
Through you, Madam Deputy President, that's been suggested that might be the reason why. We'd have too much to say.
We probably would. And I agree, having had just 4 to 5 days to trawl through hundreds of pages of budget papers, it's difficult to deliver a reply. I'm not complaining, Madam Acting President, just saying how it is. I do like to be solution focused, and I was interested to hear the member for Huon's remarks when he noted that the Constitution Act 1934 provides that the Legislative Council may return a money bill to the House of Assembly requesting amendment of the bill. The member for Huon suggested it may be a bit too sudden to take advantage of that provision and send the budget back this year, but if the provision exists, perhaps it's something we ought to explore further. I was also interested to hear your comments, Madam Acting President, that for the first time in 20 years, you were asking yourself whether you could, in all good conscience, actually support this budget as the member for Murchison. I note your comments, and I know that you've worked very hard to understand the budget over your 20 years in this place. And when the member for Murchison is so alarmed that she's not sure whether she can support the budget that's presented, I suggest the government ought to stand up and listen. In fact, they should have stood up and listened before now. The member for Murchison has been conveying significant concern about the budget and the financial situation of Tasmania for some time, as have other members of Parliament. There have been solutions suggested. There have been goodwill offers of wanting to work together to find solutions, as Tasmanians rightly expect us to do. But instead, the government ploughs on, seemingly forgetting they are leading in minority, that they don't have a mandate, that they actually do need to work together with all other members of Parliament to deliver for Tasmanians. The government is ignoring the richness and diversity of our collective intelligence in this and the other place, what the 50 of us could achieve working together. As Mayor of Glenorchy City Council, my number one priority was bringing elected members together on the journey in forming our budget and in any decision making, for that matter, because cohesion and collaboration is critical if you are to govern effectively and serve the best interests of the people who elect you. Our budget process at Council involved a series of workshops beginning in around October and going through until June. Everyone came together to discuss priorities and ideas, informed by the advice of departments of Council. We also engaged with the community asking about its priorities to help inform our decision making. Now, I'm not saying this process was perfect or that people were always happy with the outcomes, but they had the opportunity to engage and have input, elected members and the community, well before the budget landed. Why can't we do something similar in here? Even if 50 members is too unwieldy to do so, to put through a process like this, what about a budget committee? What we know is the current process is not working. It is not satisfactory to most non-government members. We are rushed in delivering a budget reply, and then next week government administration committees will spend hundreds of hours collectively scrutinising the budget line by line, questioning ministers for some answers to explain things that aren't clear in the numbers or commentary that's presented. This process is also provided for in our standing orders under Part 21 Estimates Committees, 220 Budget Papers Referred, which says when debate has concluded on the question that the budget papers be noted, the budget papers are to be referred to Estimates Committees A and B of the Council. Such committees may not vote on, but may examine and report upon the proposed expenditures contained in the appropriation bill. Such expenditures shall be considered on an output-by-output basis, including grants, subsidies and loans, and the capital investment program. This budget estimates process consumes enormous amounts of resources, both during the week next week, in our time, ministers' time, and the time of departmental staff and advisors who support this process. It consumes significant resources of government department staff and advisors who spend thousands of hours collectively on taxpayer money in preparing huge folders full of information for budget estimates, putting together information about so many things, answers to questions that won't even be asked. I've participated in this process as a public servant, putting together question time brief, estimates briefs. It's a lot of work taken away that could be actually doing other things, perhaps better serving Tasmanians, because all for what? This estimates process. Reports provided that perhaps no one reads, for better understanding of the budget perhaps, but certainly no material change to it. It's too late. Why aren't we having these conversations before the budget is finalised? Budget workshops, a budget committee. Let's do things differently. Get better outcomes for Tasmanians. But, Madam Acting President, it is what it is this year. Next week's in estimates, I hope the government will be able to explain how it justifies this exorbitant proposed expenditure on high-performance sporting infrastructure to serve an elite few, while thousands of kids miss out or play in substandard facilities with equipment from the 1960s to 1980s. I have repeatedly said, even before I was elected to this place, that my support for government investment in high-performance sporting facilities is contingent on the government also equally prioritising investment in grassroots sporting infrastructure. Right now, the numbers show this is not occurring. This budget includes $11.5 million for sponsorship deals with Hawthorn, the Jack Jumpers and Cricket Tasmania, whilst the amount provided to state sporting organisations for community programs hasn't increased for decades. This budget includes $105 million for the Devils High Performance Training Centre, whilst at the same time the Tasmania Active Infrastructure Program, which provides funding to grassroots sporting facilities, has been cut from $5 million per year to $2.5 million per year. There's millions of dollars for elite facilities to be owned or leased for a small buck by commercial sporting entities, whilst at the same time our TIS athletes train in makeshift gym facilities located in office administration buildings at Technopark. Our athletes who are aspiring to represent our state and our country on the international stage at the Olympics are left behind by this government whilst it dishes out millions to the AFL and NBL. It's simply not right and it's not fair. There's no funding in this budget for much-needed community basketball courts in Hobart, where there is not one community court, and kids will be on the street when Swisher closes in 12 months' time. There's not even the $5 million the government committed for this purpose leading into the federal election off the back of the motion supported by this House, calling on the government to contribute a share for the Home for Hobart facility in Newtown. Of the 10 community or semi-elite sporting facilities promoted as receiving funding in the government's glossy budget brochure, there is just one in the south. And guess where it is? In Taroona. Funnily enough, where this government recently tried very unsuccessfully to buy a legislative council seat. It's time investment decisions were made on evidence-based need rather than winning votes. It's time our community sporting organisations were prioritised over and above, or at the very least equally to, elite sport that is run as a business. The fact that we know, Mr President, that some kids are missing out on the opportunity to play sport shows that the government's priorities are unbalanced, skewed heavily towards investment in elite sport. This is not a budget for Tasmania's children, and they deserve better. I note the budget.
Question